Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. Before we get into the stories, I just wanted to say that I'm getting kind of low on stories. So if you have one you'd like to share, that would be great. But don't feel like you have to. I'm just throwing it out there. You can send your story at southerncannibal.com or southerncannibalstories@gmail.com. All that being said, let's get into the stories. And remember to always stay hungry. I'm a 24-year-old female with a 2-year-old son and a 10-month-old son. I work in the medical field, so on my days off, my boys stay home with me instead of going to daycare. It was a Tuesday morning, and we needed to go to the grocery store. I load up the kids, and we drive to our nearest Walmart. I never had anything out of the ordinary happen to me when going to the store with my kids, but I tend to be extra paranoid anyways. We get to Walmart, and I walk in while pushing my boys in the cart, and I then see a man. To be honest, he looked like he could be homeless. He was wearing dirty, torn-up clothes, and he seemed to just be wandering around near the entrance doors. As I was getting the boys situated, I watched him ram a shopping cart into one of the fridges by the checkout area that holds the different drinks for what seemed to be no reason. It made a loud sound that caught me off guard, but I kept my head down and continued to push the cart past him and continue on my way. As I'm making my way through the store, checking off items on my list, I had started to see the man more and more throughout the store. The odd thing was that he was still just walking around with nothing in his hands. Again, I didn't think much of it, but I made sure to stay alert. I finished getting all of the stuff I needed, and I started to make my way to the self-checkout area. As I started ringing up my items, I noticed the man as well come up to the checkout area. He walks up to my cart, and he then stops a few feet away, and he's just standing there, staring at my kids and I. I didn't exactly know what he was doing at first, but I immediately felt my stomach drop. I made some eye contact with him a couple of times, thinking he would walk away, or at least act like he was doing something, but he still just continued to stare as I was checking out with my groceries. At this point, I was starting to become very anxious, and so were my boys. He had a look on his face which I can only describe as pure evil. There was literally nothing behind his eyes. I wanted to get the attention of a worker, but I also didn't want to let the man know that I was going to say something, as I didn't know what he was going to do. Had it just been myself, I would have been much more confrontational, but given that it was just me with my 2 young boys, I was much more nervous about the situation. I finished checking out my stuff, and I then realized that I left my wallet in my car. Of course, because this is the perfect time for something like that to happen. So I put all of my bags in my cart, and I then pulled the car to the nearest worker. I then explained to them that I left my wallet in the car, and I needed to go get it. But the man behind me was making me extremely uncomfortable. Thank goodness the worker had noticed the man and his odd behavior, and then grabbed a male worker to walk with me out to my car to go get my wallet. We walked out, and we then briefly talked about the man and how he was acting. The worker had said that he had never seen him there before, but that he had been in the store all morning acting very weird. There was nothing they could do about kicking him out though, as he wasn't doing anything illegal. We got back into the store, I paid for my things, and the man was just standing by the entrance doors, once again just staring at us. The Walmart worker walked me back out to my car, and he helped me load up all my groceries and made sure we were safe, which did make me feel much more comfortable. Nothing else ended up happening with the strange man. I know this probably isn't the scariest story that has been submitted, but you have to remember, I was at the store with just me and my 2 young boys, and it really freaked me out, as I have no idea what the man's intentions truly were. I don't know if he was planning to steal my groceries as I walked out to my car, or if he was going to try and steal me and my kids, but I truly feel like he was actually planning something. Needless to say, I won't be going back to that Walmart by myself anymore. I work at a Target in the state of Washington. A lot of crazy stuff has happened in this Target, but this has been the most scariest thing to have ever happened to me. Something to keep in mind while I tell you this story is I'm an 18-year-old female. I'm 5'1", and I'm more on the chubbier side, so I don't really catch the eyes of guys. For privacy reasons, I'll call myself Emily. Anyways, I work in the clothing department in the fitting rooms. I basically just keep the fitting rooms clean, making sure no one's shoplifting, organizing clothes, and running back and forth from customer service. I usually work night shifts, so basically until we close, which is at 10 p.m. The night is going pretty slow, and I've caught up on everything, and the store was pretty empty at the time. So I decided to organize the accessories area to pass time. I'm organizing the bags when I noticed a man looking through the rings. He was a tall man with tan skin, dark hair, and he had on black jeans and a black jacket with a yellow t-shirt underneath. This is actually important for later. Now at first, I didn't think much of him. I just thought, oh, he's probably shopping for his girlfriend or something. We made eye contact, but I looked away to not make it awkward. He then comes up to me and he asks,
"Excuse me, which rings do you think are nicer?"
He shows me these two pairs of rings. One was gold and the other was silver, with diamonds on both. I just told him my honest opinion and I said gold. He looked at me with a very kind of creepy grin, then sang,
"Okay, thank you."
I walked away after that and kept doing my thing. A couple of minutes pass, and I notice the same man hasn't left the area. I went from the bags area to now the hats, then the sunglasses. I had a very weird feeling that I was being watched and followed by this man, because everywhere I went, he was there near me. I felt uncomfortable, so I grabbed my cart and I left back to the fitting room. I noticed him walking slowly through the woman's clothing behind me. I just honestly tried not overthinking it. I stood there waiting to see if he showed up, but he didn't. My coworker comes to the fitting room, whom we'll refer to as Carla. She asked me if everything was fine, and I then whispered to her about the man, and she then looked at me with a confused look. The man then walks past the fitting room. To give a brief description on the area, the fitting room is next to two areas. On the left side is the men's area, and on the right the plus-size women's area. So basically the fitting rooms are in the middle. The men's area has a really big mirror by the fitting room. He walks into the men's area. I told her that was him, and she was like, seems a bit weird. She stayed with me for a while, and she helped me organize the clothes. The man came back and he starts trying on hats, asking for our opinions on them. Carla and I said they look fine. We were honestly very uncomfortable at this point, and Carla had to go back to her area, so she left. Silence then started to hit. I was somewhat freaking out, but trying to keep myself busy. At this point, the man is just standing around like he's waiting for someone. He comes to my desk, now asking me random questions, like how my day is, when do I get off, and if random stuff still looks good on him. Every time I answered, he would give me a creepy grin. And no, I never did tell him what time I got off. I really tried my best to just keep smiling and acting like I was busy, just so he can go away, but he never got the message. Then, I noticed that he grabbed this black Levi's leather jacket. He puts the jacket over his original black jacket, and he looks at himself in the mirror. He comes close to me.
"If I walk out like this, will you snitch on me?"
He said while giving me a smile. I froze, and I looked at him confused, then saying, yeah, it's my job to. Plus, you'd probably get caught. There's cameras everywhere here." The man just looks down, then saying,
Oh, that's too bad then.
It's at this point that I didn't really feel safe being there, so I left the fitting room as quickly as I could. As I walked away, I was calling for the security on the walkie when I then spotted her. I explained the whole situation, and I kept looking around frantically. Both of my team leads saw me and came to me quickly. We'll call them Alan and Andrew. Alan asked me what was going on, and I then explained to them what had just happened. They asked me where he was now, and I told him at the fitting room. I explained to them that I don't want to go back there until he leaves. They told me to go find Carla and stay with her. I went on my walkie and I called for Carla and I asked for her location. She told me that she was at the fitting room, and I told her to come to the kids' clothing section. I kind of just paced back and forth until she arrived. I asked her what happened, and she said that she heard me calling for security, and she went to the fitting room very quickly to look for me. Apparently the guy was still there, and he was talking to her, asking her random questions. That's when I called her, and she came here. We had waited around for what seemed like forever. It was getting to be about 9:45 p.m. at this point, and I was getting impatient. I then hear over the walkie, "Hey Emily, can you come back to the fitting room?" And I just stood there scared as I looked at Carla. Sure, I'm on my way," I said. I walked back to the fitting room, and I saw my team leads. Alan was standing at the entrance of the men's fitting room, while Andrew was standing at the desk. I asked them what happened, and they then whispered to me that he was in there. I looked at the stall, and there he is, standing there doing God knows what. My team leads asked me what he was wearing before he got in there, and I told them. 5 minutes pass, and I then hear the fitting room door then open. I then ran into the woman's fitting room so he wouldn't see me. "Hey sir, are you doing okay?" Alan asks. The man just kind of stared at Alan and Andrew, then sang,
Yeah, I'm fine. What's going on?"
Alan went on to explain how he was making my coworkers very uncomfortable with the comments and gestures he was making. I heard the man chuckle, and he then said,
"Oh, so the little bitch snitched, huh? Well, I'm gonna have to go fucking find her."
That's when he then ran off and left the store. I stood in disbelief on what the hell just happened. My anxiety was overflowing like a can of soda now. I didn't know what to do, but I was frozen. My team leads comforted me, and they asked me if I was all right. After the clock hit 10 o'clock, we closed down for the night. My team leads made sure that a big group walked with me to my car. I was afraid, and I kept looking around the area just to make sure the man wasn't there. He wasn't, or so I thought. Once my coworkers left, I noticed in the distance at a bus stop the same silhouette of a man standing and watching me. I drove off as fast as I could, going home. I kept checking behind me every couple of seconds just to make sure that I wasn't followed. Ever since this night, I always carry pepper spray now, and I always pay attention to my surroundings. It's been 2 weeks since this happened, and thankfully, the man hasn't come back since. If you're the man listening to this, I want you to know you're the creepiest and craziest person that I've ever met while working, and I really hope I don't see you again. This happened when I was about 18 or 19. I'm a 5'3", 95-pound female, by the way, if that matters. I was working in a candy shop in my local mall. The mall used to be a nice place to hang out, but now it's pretty run down. There are lots of empty storefronts as well as homeless people and druggies that hang around outside. While working the sales floor one day, a cracked out looking homeless man entered the store. I greeted him, and I handed him a sample, as I did with everyone. He took it from me, and he just stared at me blankly. I then asked him if I could help him find anything. No answer. He just kept staring at me. Weird, I thought, as I walked behind the candy counter, and I went on with my day. The next day at work, I had the same encounter with this same creepy guy. He came in, took a sample, and he then just stared at me until he left. While he was staring at me though, I decided to look him in the eyes, and they looked completely devoid of life. Just black nothingness, and his eyes would glaze over like he was on something. They looked crazy. I ended up telling my managers all about this man and just how much he creeped me out, and they totally understood. So whenever he would enter the store, I would go into the back room and my managers would deal with him. As the days went on, I kept seeing this man around more and more. Eventually my bosses banned him from coming into the store because he was creeping everyone out. However, there was one night that I was working with a manager from a different location, who we'll call Jay for privacy reasons, who was unaware of this man and the whole situation. On this night, we were fairly busy. There were maybe about 7 to 10 customers in the store, including manager Jay and myself. I was behind the main candy counter, which is a big glass full of our displays of candy, and manager Jay was on the sales floor talking to customers and handing out samples. As I'm in the middle of helping a lady make a box of candy, guess who walked into the store? Yep, the creepy cracked out looking homeless man. As I saw him approach manager Jay, I then said, "Oh fuck," under my breath, because his eyes were locked onto me like I was his prey. When he walked inside, manager Jay had her back turned to him, and he stopped right behind her, so that when she turned around, she bumped into him, and it startled her. She then tried to hand him a sample and asked if she could help him find anything. The answer he gave her still gives me chills to this day. Still staring at me, he lifts up his arms and points directly at me, then saying, "Yeah, I want to solicit sex from this young lady." Manager Jay then said, "I'm sorry, excuse me? What?" Like she hadn't heard him, so he would repeat himself. And he said it again, but louder and more aggressive this time. "Yeah, I said I want to solicit sex from her." I just stood there in shock, not knowing what to think or say. I mean, this was the first time I'd even heard this man speak. When manager Jay snapped out of being in shock herself, she then told him to get the fuck out of our store and immediately called security to then let them know all about the situation. Anytime he tried to enter the mall after that, the security guards would just take him outside. I thought this would be the last time I ever encountered him, but no. Just a few days after he told me he wanted to have sex with me, he found me outside while I was on my lunch break. I would always sit outside on the ground in front of the mall while I ate my lunch, and I remember specifically that I was eating spaghetti and meatballs that day. This creepy man tried approaching me. For what, I don't know, but I know I wanted him nowhere near me. I started to panic on the inside because I realized I had left my knife in my purse, which was in the break room of the store. So I had no weapon on me in this moment, and in my toughest voice, I then yelled at him, "Stay the fuck away from me!" This had absolutely no effect on him though. His eyes were still locked onto me, and he was approaching quickly. The only thing I could think to do was to stand my ground. I stood up and yelled at him again to stay the fuck away from me, and he then just stopped in front of me. Without hesitating, I then just threw the rest of my lunch at him. My spaghetti and meatballs in red sauce. It spilled all down the front of his shirt and pants. This seemed to snap him out of whatever trance he was in, which was probably drug-induced, and he then yelled at me,
"Hey, what the hell did you do that for?"
I didn't stick around to answer him though. I just grabbed my stuff, and I then ran to find the nearest security guard. After this, I never had another encounter with him. The last I heard of him was that he tried to steal a bunch of stuff from the Ross in the mall, and the cops were called and he was arrested. I know this may not sound that scary to some people, but it really creeped me out, and I really hope that I never see him again.